Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki
Jai!
Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki
Jai!
Mayapur Dham ki Vrindavan Dham ki Jagannath Pur Dham ki Lower East Side Dham ki Srila Prabhupada ki Guru Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna!
All glories, all glories.
Hare Krishna, good morning everybody, and welcome to our Sunday Bhagavat Sravana program. So today, if you haven't been to our festival, our Sunday festival that we do every Sunday, our Sunday Feast program, it goes like this. We just had some wonderful kirtan. Thank you, Ari and Akesh Prabhu's. We will have a class given by Jagannath Gopal today. We'll have arti and some more kirtan, and then we will have prasadam in the back. Everything will be vegan. So I will go ahead and introduce our wonderful speaker today, our wonderful community member, Jagannath Gopal Das. Currently, he works as a software engineer in an investment bank in New Jersey. He came to the US and to Bhakti Center back in 2017, and he's been a very devoted community member since then. He has a master's degree in computer science from SUNY Stony Brook, and he was introduced to Krishna consciousness during his undergrad in Pune, India. He does a lot of sevas for Bhakti Center and for the New York area, including he presents, leads discussions, discourses, and writings, and you can often find him assisting with programs at 26 2nd Avenue, Matchless Gifts, and of course at Bhakti Center as well. So we're so pleased to have him here today, and I will turn the mic over to him. Do you need help with the TV, Prabhu?
Yeah, I just need to switch it on. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I get the middle? Just do a quick Jaya Mantra. Jai Radha Madhava Thank you very much. Thank you, please. Very big thanks to Jagannath Prabhu, Ekeshwar Prabhu, Hari Prabhu for the Kirtan and for helping with the setup. Also Jenny. Yeah. I ran a little late to arrive. So, begin with the Om Namo Bhagavate prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Ajnana-Timirandhasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya-Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Ramahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaraghunathadvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vinamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nidhi Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesh Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurapishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Saptakanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. My gratitude to all of you, and I seek blessings from all of you, especially the senior Vaishnava Satyaraj Prabhu, that we can discuss something today that is uplifting to us from the life of Vidurji, and so that we can all go closer to Krishna, closer to redeeming our true natures as spiritual beings, and in line with the Guru Parampara. So, a lot of what I have taken here has already been revealed by devotees like Chaitanya Sharan Prabhu, Gaurang Darshan Prabhu. So, I'm just taking their content and representing it. So, this is not originally mine. So, before we get into this, does everyone here have a rough idea about the Kuru family tree? Like we talk about Vidura today. Oops.
Just touch your computer.
What's that?
You'll have to just touch your computer.
Okay. So we talk about Vidura today, but do you guys know who Vidura was? So do you know who Dhritarashtra was? Dhritarashtra, his eldest son was Duryodhan, right? So Duryodhan was very envious. So the Kuru family tree begins from Shantanu. Shantanu was a king, and then Shantanu had 4 children. So Shantanu and his wife Satyavati together had 4 children actually. So Bhishma, then there is Vyasa, Vedavyas, who wrote all the scriptures, Vedic scriptures. Then Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. These were the 4 children, out of which Chitrangada and Vichitravirya, they died prematurely, so they didn't create any progeny. And Bhishma had taken a vow of celibacy. Bhishma took a vow of celibacy, so he didn't have any progeny either. And then Vyasa, on the other hand, he had 3 sons who took the Kuru race forward. And the eldest one was Dhritarashtra. I think Dhritarashtra or Pandu, I don't remember who. He was born blind. Now, how each character, every character sketch here is a story in itself. We'll not get into those stories here. But in any case, Dhritarashtra was born blind, and Pandu, who became the king after Shantanu, he was born pale. Like he looked pale, very timid and pale. That's how he was. And then there was Vidura. So now Vidura was the wise one, and among all these 3 brothers were trained by their uncle Bhishma. Bhishma is a great warrior. He is considered as the foremost, the strongest. Actually, it is said that he was so powerful that he could wipe out the entire opposing army alone. That's how powerful he was, Bhishma. But anyway, and he was very virtuous also. He's also a great devotee, one of the Mahajanas. But that's a different story for another day. So Bhishma trained all these 3 brothers, Pandu, Dhritarashtra and Vidura. And then after their training, he had to give a report to his mother. So their grandmom, Vidura's, Dhritarashtra's and Pandu's grandmother. So he describes that Pandu his strength is military might. He's very good at military arts. Dhritarashtra, his strength is his strength. So he was very strong, physically strong. And Vidura, his strength was his wisdom and devotion. Wisdom, devotion, and his deep understanding of ethics and morality. That was Vidura. Now we all know the story. We all know Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita was, what is the context of the Bhagavad Gita? When was it spoken? Yes.
Spoken as Krishna's advice to Arjuna during the Kurukshetra war.
Yeah, before the Kurukshetra war, right?
Before. Yeah.
So why did the Kurukshetra war had to take place? Because the 2 warring parties were, on one side were the 100 sons of Duryodhana and their supporters, who are known as the Kauravas. On the other hand, there were the Pandavas, the 5 brothers, the 5 sons of Pandu. Right? And that's why the war was taking place. Now what happened is, after Shantanu, of course, Bhishma took care of the kingdom for some time on a temporary basis, and then Pandu became the king. And Dhritarashtra was disqualified from becoming the king because he was blind. And then that's why Pandu became the king. And now the Pandavas were the rightful heirs to the kingdom. But Dhritarashtra was always, his name itself, Dhritarashtra, his attachment to the Rashtra, to the kingdom. That's in his name itself, right? So he was very attached. He was always lamenting, why was I born blind? Let me, I should have had the kingdom. I should have been the king. He always had this lamentation. But then he knew that because he was blind, he was disqualified. He accepted that as the rule that time. But then he wanted his son to become the king. Sometimes when parents can't get into some Ivy League colleges, they want their kids to do it, right? So it was something like that with Dhritarashtra. If I can't be the king, that's fine, but my sons should be the king. Mainly my elder son, Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana. But then the Pandavas, Yudhishthir was the rightful heir to the kingdom, and that's where the conflict was. And Duryodhana was very he didn't just want to become the king. It's like you want to achieve something is one thing, right? You want to, let's say you want to achieve a post in your workplace. That is good, no worries about that. But then if we are willing to take out anybody who comes in our way of doing that, that is the problem. That was Duryodhana. So Duryodhana had this intense desire to become the king, but then he was ready to go to any lengths to wipe out the Pandavas. And we see his attempts at the Pandavas' lives. But anyway, so the central character today that we are going to discuss about is Vidura. Vidura, the wise uncle of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So that's where we begin. So before we begin, there is this verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhavad Vida Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho. Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani Svantasthena Gadavrita. So it says saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord. And therefore they can purify even places of pilgrimage. So, and this verse was said by Yudhishthir to Vidura. So he's actually glorifying Vidura. And I was thinking, Bhagavat Shravan, right? We are gathered today for Bhagavat Shravan. And here Vidura is being described as a Bhagavat, Bhagavad Gita Bhagavat. So, and Prabhupada writes in the first canto of Bhagavatam that there are two Bhagavats. One is the book Bhagavat. Book Bhagavat is the actual physical book. And there is the person Bhagavat. There are two Bhagavats. The person Bhagavat is the one who lives according to the book Bhagavat. And Prabhupada writes that if you follow any of the two, you will get perfection. Book Bhagavat or the person Bhagavat. And in Kali Yuga, of course, we are not, I guess, qualified enough or able enough to understand the book Bhagavat on our own. That is why we need the person Bhagavat to make us understand what the book Bhagavat is. But anyway, so this is a verse that Maharaj Yudhishthira says to Vidura, glorifying him as a place of pilgrimage personified. So, pilgrimage or tirtha is one meaning of tirtha is bridge, and a bridge from the material world to the transcendental world, to the spiritual world. And these great devotees of the Lord, they are like bridges, not the bridges in the sense of after we cross it, we kick them, not that kind of a bridge, but a transparent via medium who can take us to God, take us to Krishna. So some important life events of Vidura before we get into the actual lessons for us, and we'll have some discussion, some exchange as well. So Vidura, he has a backstory. So almost all characters in Mahabharata, they have a backstory. Some of them are revealed, some of them are not revealed. About Vidura, it is revealed. So everyone knows Yamaraj, right? Who is Yamaraj? Sorry?
Basically, like the god of death.
God of death, yes. God of death, the God of justice. So after a soul leaves their body, they are actually taken to Yamaraj, who punishes or rewards them according to their good or bad deeds. And so Yamaraj was one day, he was just going about his business as the god of death, as the god of justice. And this Mandavya Muni, he was a sage, he came to Yamaraj. So what had happened was this Mandavya Muni, he was a sage, he was meditating one day on the earth. He was meditating one day, and then suddenly some dacoits came. Now these dacoits, they had stolen something from the government treasury. And they came and they saw this sage meditating in his hermitage. But then they had to flee. And sometimes what thieves do is they stash what they have stolen in some place and then they run away. So that at least what they have stolen is intact. Right? And they can deal with the authorities later on. So what these thieves did was they stashed whatever they had stolen in the hermitage of Mandavya Muni. And this Mandavya Muni, he was meditating, he didn't know what was going on. And then these dacoits, actually the government guards were after them. They were actually chasing them. So they hurriedly came, they put all their thievery, whatever products of thievery there, and then they ran away. And then these guards came and they found that Mandavya Muni had all this treasure that belonged to the government. Then these guards, they actually arrested Mandavya Muni. They thought that, okay, this guy is an accomplice to this theft, to this heist. So they took him and then they took him to the superintendent or whatever, district attorney in today's context. So they took him to this so-called district attorney, and then that person said, okay, death is the punishment for you because you helped steal the... and Mandavya Muni didn't have any clue what was going on. Now they were going to pierce Pandava Muni with swords or whatever pointed objects to kill him, and just then the king received the news that this Muni is going to be killed, and he was found as an accomplice to this theft. And then the king knew the greatness of this Muni, this sage. So he immediately came running. He said, no, 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 don't kill him. He is a great sage. You don't have any idea. He can't do such things. So he's innocent here, so don't do it. And then he was spared. But then Mandavi Muni was not happy. He was angry. And why he was angry was, he had to be put through all that turmoil. He had to be put through all that trouble. They had to arrest him, and he was about to be killed and whatnot. So then he thought, okay, I'll take this to trial. I'll take this to trial with none other than Yamaraj himself. Because Yamaraj is the one who awards, the fruits of the rewards for our actions. So he went to Yamaraj and said, Yamaraj, what is this, man? This is not fair. This is not happening. I didn't do anything. I didn't help them steal this or anything. So why did I have to go through this? Then Yamaraj said, actually, and this Muni, he was a realized sage, right? And then he tried to see his own life, and he understood that in his entire life he never did something that would make him deserve such kind of a treatment. And then he asked Yamaraj, what is this? And Yamaraj said, actually, dear sage, when you were a very little kid, you saw an ant near you, and you took like a pin, like a needle or something, and you pricked it to kill it. And then Mandavi Muni said, but hold on, okay, I was a kid that time, and kids don't have discrimination, right? Most kids don't. Some self-realized kids do. So they don't. I didn't have discrimination that time. I didn't know right from wrong. So this was an innocent mistake. So why did you punish me? Then Yamaraj said, yes, I understand. The reason that you were just given a feeling of being pricked, but not actually pricked, actually was a concession because you did this when you were a kid. So because you were a kid when you did this, and we gave you a concession, and the concession was that you were not actually pricked and killed. You were just, you were put in that situation where you felt as if you would be killed. But Mandavi Muni said, no, not happening. I still don't agree with your reasoning. Then he said, I curse you. I curse you to take birth in a lower caste or from a maid servant on the earthly planet. And that is none other than Vidura. So Vidura is none other than Yamaraj himself. So his father was Vyasadeva, his mother was a maid servant in the Kuru dynasty, and he was very wise and religious since childhood, as we already discussed. And he was a pure devotee of Krishna. So how many of you know the story where Krishna, when he rejected the opulent reception arranged by Duryodhana, and he went to Vidura's small hut or whatever, small home. How many of you know that story? Yes. So what happened was Krishna was invited. Krishna, he went as a peace messenger before the war. We discussed the war of Kurukshetra in the beginning. So Krishna and the Pandavas also, they were not out to fight. They didn't want to fight. They just asked for 5 villages, one each for the 5 Pandavas, because it was their nature to rule. They were Kshatriyas, they were administrators by nature. But then Duryodhana said, I will not give you even a piece of land which is through which a needle can pass or something. The tip of a needle. I won't even give you that much land. Get lost. Then war was inevitable, but still Krishna wanted to try. Still the Pandavas wanted to try to avert this war. So they sent Krishna as a peace messenger. And when they sent Krishna as a peace messenger, Krishna he went. Both Vidura and the palace, the Kuru palace residents, they had invited, Duryodhana mainly, they had invited Krishna to come. So Duryodhana had arranged like a big meal, like a huge feast of various delicacies for Krishna. But then Krishna rejected all that. He didn't go to that. He went to Vidura. Vidura had a simple, humble place to live and all that. So then there he went, and Vidura's wife, she knew that the invitation was extended to Krishna, but she never thought that Krishna would turn up. She thought Krishna will go to the palace. But then he did come, and she was kind of flustered. What to do now? Krishna is here, the Supreme Lord of our hearts is here. Then she thought, she made Krishna sit and everything, and then she thought, okay, what to offer to Krishna? So she had some bananas over there. So she started giving him bananas. So she used to peel the bananas, throw the banana out, and give the peel to Krishna. So that's what she was doing. But then because it was being done with pure love, Krishna accepted it wholeheartedly, ate it. So this is one example, how Vidura and his wife, they were pure devotees. And then another very interesting point about Vidura is that Krishna, while quitting this world, he remembered Vidura. While quitting this world, in Krishna's midst were in Krishna's presence were Maitreya Muni, another great sage, and Uddhava. Uddhava was Krishna's friend and confidant in Mathura Dwarka. So they both were there, and then he said to them that, my dear devotee Vidura, who has gone through so much in his life, he was in the muddiest of places. He was in the Kuru palace where so many schemes were being made to kill my devotees Pandavas, and so my dear devotee Draupadi was disturbed. In this whole muddy place, he was like a lotus. So he's going to come and inquire from you about the absolute truth. So he gave them knowledge to give to Vidura. So then Krishna actually remembered Vidura at the time of his leaving the world. Then he was an advisor to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is his brother, the blind king. So he was an advisor to him. So it was a thankless service. We'll see why shortly. And then he was one of the only two people who vocally opposed the disrobing of Draupadi. Vidura was one of the two who vocally opposed. He said, this is all nonsense. What are you guys doing? You are just incurring so much sin on you that your entire dynasty will be killed. This is not happening. Don't do this. But nobody listens to him. And then he protected the Pandavas from Duryodhana's attempts to kill them. So he did this also in a very smart way. We'll not get into that. It's 57 already. And then he instructed Dhritarashtra about various, timeless nuggets of ethics and morality, and that whole section is known as the Vidur Niti. So Niti is ethics or morality. So the instructions on ethics and morality given by Vidura to Dhritarashtra are known as Vidur Niti. And then what happened was, at one point, actually, when Krishna came as the peace messenger, and then they arrested Krishna also there. And then Vidura, he actually became very stern. And he told Dhritarashtra that, what are you doing? Your son. So he called Duryodhana offense personified. So your son is offense personified, and you're just listening to him without any opposition. You're just agreeing to whatever he wants to do. This is not good. And he tells many things. And out of love, out of a goodwill, out of a well-wishing nature, he does that. But then Duryodhana happens to hear it, and then he becomes very angry, and then he calls him very ill words. He calls him the son of a kept maid servant. This son of a kept maid servant should be thrown out and should be left with nothing but his breath. So basically, he was saying, beat him up like a pulp so bad that his breath is the only thing that he should have. And when Duryodhana said these words, and at that point, or I think this was before, when Duryodhana was criticizing Vidura directly, Dhritarashtra. Now, if my child, for example, is insulting his uncle or someone, then I would say, stop insulting your uncle, or I would be stern like that. But you know what Dhritarashtra said? Dhritarashtra said, Duryodhana, stop insulting the Prime Minister. So he was not even ready to acknowledge that relationship, and that really hurt Vidura a lot. But then he contemplated on it, and then he decided that, okay, this is a blessing of Krishna. So let me just go on a pilgrimage. Okay. So he went on a pilgrimage, and there he met great sages. He met Maitreya and Uddhava. That section where his conversations with Maitreya and Uddhava are detailed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd and 4th cantos. Yeah, so that was, and Vidur Niti we already discussed his instructions on ethics and morality to Vidur, to Dhritarashtra. But anyway, one thing that Vidura says to Maitreya when he meets, out of gratitude, he says that, I'm confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up this false idea. So, I'll just read the entire quote to put it in context. But my dear sir, this Vidura is saying to Maitreya, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. So, it is said that on the path of spiritual life, on the path of bhakti especially, it is not so important as to what you know. It is important, not that it's not important, but more important than what you know is who you know. And this was actually said by one disciple of Prabhupada called Gopi Paranadhan Prabhu. And you know Gopi Paranadhan Prabhu, he was a Sanskrit scholar. So he said this. Yeah, it's not about what we know, it's about who we know, how we serve, right? And this is what Vidura is saying to Maitreya. And we may possess lots of knowledge, right? We may cram in lots of books, we may cram in lots of verses and whatnot. But unless we serve the Guru, unless we serve the spiritual master in a humble mood, the realizations of that knowledge will not come. So that is what Vidura is trying to teach us here. In any case, so let's move ahead. Now we'll go to the lessons, right? So there is attachment and then there is affection. So Prabhupada writes in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that desire is the concomitant factor of the living entity. So Prabhupada writes. So desire is something that stays with the living entity throughout, eternally, forever. A concomitant factor. Concomitant factor is something that constantly accompanies something else. So like that desire is the concomitant factor of the living entity. Shri Ram Bhagavan Ki Jai. Gauri Chandra Bhagavan. Srila Prabhupada. So desire is the concomitant factor of the living entity. And how does that, so like there are some spiritual paths that say, oh, you will become desireless. You should become desireless. But actually that is not possible. That is not possible. And Krishna also says in the Gita, Nahi kashti kshanam api jatu tishthatya karma krit. There cannot even be a moment where the soul cannot act. And the reason is that because there is desire. Desire is like that, the dharma of the soul in one sense. It's the essential nature, the innate nature of the soul is to desire. And how does that desire manifest itself? It manifests itself in the form of servitude, especially in our relationships. We all want to serve someone. We all want to serve someone. We all want to please someone. Anyway, in our relationships, right? Someone or something, right? Even Prabhupada used to say that if we don't have anyone to please as such close to us, we would want to have a dog as a pet, and we take care of the dog. And that care for the dog also is actually coming from that innate nature of the soul, which is to serve, the desire to serve, right? And so now the desire for servitude actually manifests itself in our relationships in two ways. Okay, one is attachment and one is affection. So we want to serve and that is there. Now there is attachment and there is affection. Right? Now this is where I want inputs from all of you. And we'll see how these two qualities were actually exhibited by Dhritarashtra and Vidura. So so what I wanted to ask you was, what do you think is the difference? What is the differentiating factor or differentiating factors between affection and attachment? Anyone? Yes.
I feel like affection is when you do something with an eye towards how is it affecting, with an eye towards how it's affecting the person that you're serving. And when you do something because of attachment, you're doing it with a sense of how am I being perceived, or is my desire being served with the actions that I'm performing. So it's kind of about perspective.
Very good, yeah. Attachment is, I guess, if I understood you correctly, it's more like a selfish kind of a thing. I'm getting something out of doing for something for someone. Whereas affection is in a genuine sense for the well-being of the other person. Yes. Any other? Yes. Yes.
Attachment is attachment is when there are no emotions attached. What I can understand, affection is purely based on emotions. So your positive emotions are attached to somebody, you will be affectionate. Okay, attachment need not have emotions.
Okay. One way of looking at it. Any other inputs here? Yes.
Attachment can be very intense and difficult. And it's like desiring attention and some kind of like needing, very deep need. Whereas affection is like a flowing outwards, like a loving, it seems. Thank you.
Beautiful point. Yeah.
Attachment seems much more binding and entangling. I don't know. And affection seems more not so entangling.
Right. So somewhat similar to what Parasto Mataji mentioned, like affection is more like out of a sense of compassion you're giving out. It's like an outward expression, and attachment is something a very internal, deep, intense need or want. Right? Yes.
It could seem like it could have all those things, but not necessarily.
Okay.
And you could have an attachment, have affection, you could have affection, have some attachment.
Yes.
Right?
That's how it works. That's how it works in our day-to-day life. I'm supposed to get a cement truck toy cement truck for my son when I'm going back today. So, yes, so that is, so there is both attachment and there is affection. The proportions will differ, right? But so Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, one of our teachers, he mentions that there are three things. Okay, and this is very interesting. So there is intent, there is content, and there is consequence. You guys must have heard about this intent, content, consequence. Now we'll try to look at attachment and affection in light of these three factors, right? Intent. So like some of you mentioned, the intent when it comes to attachment is the pleasure of the other person, right? Is the pleasure of the other person, or rather, it's only the pleasure of the other person. Right? There is little or no thinking about their welfare, right? But in affection, there is a thought about the welfare. When a child asks for a chocolate from a mother, and the child's teeth are already messed up, then the mother will say, no, you can't have this. You can't have this. Now the chocolate is something that will give pleasure to the child, right? And if the mother was attached, then the mother would have said, okay, chocolate will give you pleasure, take it. No, but the mother is looking for the well-being of the child as well. So that is why the mother will say, no, you can't have this chocolate, it will harm your teeth. And so on. So the intent. Now again, there are certain things that can be done which will give us pleasure and which are for our welfare as well. It could be done, and that is actually the art of parenting in one sense, that how can you, or not just parenting, be it parenting or in any situation where you are in a relationship with someone, could be any kind of relationship. You know, the best way, I guess, to the best balance is that, yes, the things that you do for them are pleasurable and for their welfare at the same time. And I'm just contemplating on this point that Krishna or God has given us so many scriptures, right? Like we hear Krishna's stories, we hear so many stories, Narsimha Avatar, and they are very thrilling and they are very fun to hear. Right? Even Mahabharata is like wow, it's so complicated, and it's like in India when they would stream Mahabharata on the television, and this was back before YouTube and then nothing of this sort was there. Two things that kept Indians bound to the television, and like literally you wouldn't see people on the streets when these two shows would be streamed on the television, and those are Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are so captivating to the mind. So I was just thinking about this, how Krishna or God, he has given us scriptures which are, they are out of affection. Krishna has this affection for us. He has this deep sense of welfare, well-being of the world. And at the same time, he knows that if he just dumps philosophy on us, it won't make any sense. We won't take it. And that is the reason he gives us these scriptures which are captivating at the same time, thrilling at the same time, and they are meant for our welfare. They purify our hearts when we hear them. So intent, pleasure or welfare, both could be there, and or one of them could be there, but when it leans towards attachments, it is just for the pleasure of the other person, not caring for their welfare. And when affection happens, then, and in our relationships we'll see that we might gravitate towards both things. Like sometimes we might gravitate towards attachment, sometimes we might gravitate towards affection, and after you've given too many toys to your kid, then you will realize, okay, enough now. I should think about what he's doing with these toys, whether it's really helping him grow and whatnot. I talk a lot about toys and kids because I have a 2-year-old. So that is intent, right? Then there is content. So the content is the actions that we perform in attachment and in affection. In attachment, when we perform any actions, it is a lot of it is dictated by what the other person wants. What the other person, like Dhritarashtra is an example of attachment. And what Dhritarashtra used to do was he would be silent. It was a tacit agreement to whatever his evil son Duryodhana would say. Daddy, 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 I want to be the king. Okay. Daddy, 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 I want a big palace. Okay. Daddy, 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 I want something else. Okay. Daddy, 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 I want to kill the Pandavas. Okay. I mean, he did say okay, but he would be silent. And that tacit agreement, and by being silent, he was actually agreeing to what Duryodhana wanted to do. So that is attachment. It's dictated by this other person. But in affection, there is a give and take. It's a two-way street. It's not like that well-being, again, the intent is very important here. That influences the content of our actions in attachment and affection. And in the consequence of intent of welfare is that both the parties are uplifted, both the parties experience fulfillment in the relationship. Although for the time being, we have to deal with that kind of strong feedback that we receive from the other person, but that is only for a time being. But that's good for our overall welfare. And we see an example of Vidura of how he did that. And then, but on the other hand, if we just keep saying yes, if we are just attached without any thought of the other person's welfare, then it causes distress eventually. And that's what happened with Dhritarashtra. He lost all his 100 sons. So his agreement cost him his 100 sons. So anyway, that, and then now we see like very extreme spectrums of this attachment and affection. So we discussed Vidur Niti, right? Vidur Niti, the instructions of ethics and morality by Vidura to Dhritarashtra. So it is very beautiful how Vidura does all that. He tells, I think about 7 chapters of Mahabharata, Udyog Parva, are dedicated to Vidur's instructions on ethics and morality. And after all that, you know what Duryodhana says? This is what Dhritarashtra says. This is what he says. Vidura, whatever advice you render daily is the most appropriate. Saumya is a gentle person. I too think on the same lines. Although I think of the welfare of the Pandavas in a similar fashion, my views change the moment I consult Duryodhana. And he's saying, yeah, what you're saying is absolutely right. I agree, 100%. But when Duryodhana comes in front of me, it's like my logic flies out the door. I don't know. I don't understand what's happening. I just end up saying yes. So this is an example of attachment. Even in the face of good instructions from a wise well-wisher, Dhritarashtra is attached. And then now affection. This is a spectrum. This is an extreme spectrum of affection, where Vidura is saying something so strong to Dhritarashtra, but then it's actually meant for his welfare. So in Bhagavatam, it said what happens is after the entire war of Kurukshetra, the Kauravas get killed and everything, and after the Kauravas get killed, this Dhritarashtra, he is still in the palace. So the Pandavas, they become the kings of the world. Yudhishthira becomes the king of the world, and then Dhritarashtra is still staying in the palace. He is getting all the royal treatment from his brothers' sons. And these, by the way, mind you, these are the same 5 kids whom Dhritarashtra wasn't even ready to acknowledge in the beginning of the Gita. So the first verse of the Gita is Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Mama Veda Yutsava Mamakaha Pandavas Chaiva. He's asking Sanjaya that okay, all these warriors are gathered there, my sons are there and Pandu's sons are there. Mamakaha Pandavas Chaiva. So he was not even looking at these 5 Pandavas as his own kinsmen, as his own sons. And now after the war, he is living on their mercy. He's living on their. Of course, they are very good devotees of the Lord. They are very gentle people. They are very compassionate devotees. So they are taking very good care of Dhritarashtra. But then Vidura is like, bruh, what? Then he comes and then he says this. He says very strong words to Dhritarashtra. He says, alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of the food given by Bhima. So Bhima was expert in cooking. So that is why Bhima is mentioned here probably. So he says these strong words, and when he says these words to Dhritarashtra, he jolts out of his slumber. Then he says, no, now I have to go. And although these were very strong words, because they were said out of affection, genuine intent of welfare for Dhritarashtra, it actually jolted him out of his slumber, and then the elevation happened, his spiritual elevation happened. So it is said that although he could not go back to Godhead, he could not become Narottama. Narottama is like the topmost human being, but through his spiritual practices, his austerities, Dhritarashtra actually became a Dhir Purush. He did attain liberation, but he did not go back to Godhead, is what the scriptures say. Because he did not attain Godhead. The reason Acharya says because he offended the great devotees of the Lord. He offended the Pandavas. He let the disrobing of Draupadi take place and things like that. So this is attachment and affection, right? So this is one perspective of looking at this. Another related perspective is breaking the ego and applying brakes on the ego. What this means is that these words by Vidura to Dhritarashtra, which jolted him out of his sleep, spiritual sleep, were like breaking his ego. He's calling him a dog and whatnot. But then, usually in our life, it's not so intense, it's not so extreme. But what does happen in our life is we try to apply brakes on our ego. Our ego is not broken so often, but we try to apply brakes on our ego. How do we do that? We do that by, we willingly do it by accepting the instructions of spiritual superiors. We do that willingly by trying to practice spiritual life. We do that by trying to be eager despite our internal preconceived notions about life. We try to practice spiritual life. I put this picture especially because bowing down, the act of bowing down before the Lord is actually of course the externals of it is we lay flat on the ground or whatever and then we offer our respects to the Lord. But the internal mood is that I am trying to apply brakes on my false ego. I'm trying to apply brakes on my false ego, and I'm trying to acknowledge that the greatness of the Lord, acknowledge the importance of the Lord in my life. So actually, I always think this, that among all spiritual paths, the path of bhakti is very difficult. And of course, we say that the path of bhakti is very easy. The bhakti practices are very easy, but the internal war that is going on is much more difficult. The reason being that in the path of bhakti, the perfection is when we conquer our false ego. But on the path of impersonalism, there is still that tinge of greatness. Yes, I am not different from God. I am actually God. And I have to realize my Godhood. Right? So there is an externally a subduance of the false ego, but actually, if you look deep, it's not there. That pride is what kicks in. Now, applying brakes on the ego is something that is willingly done. While breaking the ego is something that happens when we are unwillingly put through certain situations. So, such situations that thoroughly purify us. And it's like, okay, what happened? What's happening here? And when such things happen, then we need guidance to see this breaking of the ego as forms of compassion on us. And we need to understand it like that, and for that we need guidance of devotees and others. And to carry on with our spiritual practice. Right? And the example of this is Indra in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Indra was very proud of his seva to the Lord. He was the superintendent of rains and he was very proud of it. And Krishna broke his pride when he lifted the Govardhan hill, and it's a long story, we'll not get into details of it, but he could not even touch a single Brajavasi, or he couldn't even impact a single grain of sand in Vrindavan. Krishna protected Vrindavan from all that, and the residents of Vrindavan from Indra's wrath. So anyway, this is something that I was thinking. Now another, we have 10 minutes, I'll try to be quick here. Another very interesting thing that we learn from Vidura is, what do we say usually? Forgive and forget. Now Vidura has a different take on it, a slightly different take on it. So here is what he says in Vidur Niti about forgiveness. There is only one defect in forgiving persons and not another. That defect is that people take a forgiving person to be weak. Okay, this is something very realistic, very practical. But then in the same breath, in the same sentence, Vidura says, in the same statement, Vidura says something else. He says that defect, however, should not be taken into consideration, for forgiveness is a great power. So we'll try to quickly see how Vidura actually, anyone has any thoughts on this before we get into Vidura's example of how he demonstrated this principle? Anyone has any thoughts? So he's saying, yes, there is one defect in forgiving, and that is that people take undue advantage of you. They feel that you're weak, but still you should forgive. So what is that thing that you should do? So he's saying, it's not that you should not forgive. It's not that, you're driving a car and suddenly somebody comes in front of you and you have to hit the brakes and you're like panicked and then you're like angry, and instead of forgiving, you go and fight with that other person. No, that is not what Vidura is saying. That is not what he's saying. But he's so what is that anyway, without being too physical here, yes.
What he meant to say, until if you don't forgive the people, you will remain attached with that person and the situation.
Yeah.
So you have to forgive that within your heart.
Yes.
So it should not harm you further. So to heal yourself and to get this attached with that situation or the person, you need to forgive. That is, I think he meant to say that.
And if you, let's say you do that, you made a brilliant point about giving up that resentment for your own good, definitely. But then, do you then naively give that person all the space that they want to do that again, do what they did again?
For that you have to do meditation, you gain lots of power within yourself. It's not easy for a being as a human.
Yes.
Of course it's not easy, but yes, it's not impossible as well.
Got it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes,
I was going to say, I think he says, forgive but don't forget.
yeah, that's what he says. Yeah, essentially that's what he says.
Because forgiveness is important,
Yes.
no matter how it's perceived by people, because like you just said, it'll destroy yourself.
Yeah.
But it's not that we should allow it to happen again.
Correct.
Just forget about it, it never happened. It did happen, and proceed with caution.
It just shows the epitome of compassion, that he can see the greater good for everyone's growth and prosperity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, this forgiveness on one hand, on one extreme, if we don't forgive, then the one extreme is vengeance. We'll be filled with vengeance towards the other person. On the other hand, if we forgive and we go we naively forgive, then we might, it's like naive trust. So both these things are, what Vidura is saying, are not conducive for our growth. So what Vidura is basically demonstrating here is forgiveness without trusting. So trust is something that needs to be built. But then at the same time, it does not mean we should not forgive. So how Vidura demonstrated this forgive but not trust immediately. I'm not saying do not trust immediately, because that needs to be built up. So Vidura would always give good advice to Dhritarashtra. He would always, with a lot of love and affection for his brother, he would do that. But then Dhritarashtra would always, turn a deaf ear to his advice. Always do that. And then at one point it gets to such an extent that Dhritarashtra is sick of Vidura's advice, because it's always against his ego, always against Duryodhana. So at one point he becomes so sick of that advice that he rejects him. He says, just go away. But then after some time he realizes his folly, comes to his senses, okay, no, I need Vidura. And then he calls him back. Now when Vidura comes back, he forgives Dhritarashtra, but he doesn't trust him immediately. He still keeps an open eye to Dhritarashtra's nepotism, to Dhritarashtra's, giving into Duryodhana's plans and whatnot. He keeps an eye on that. He keeps an eye on those things, and he tries to protect Pandavas to whatever extent he can. Right? He doesn't naively trust Dhritarashtra even after he comes back, although he did forgive Dhritarashtra. And because of this, and he maintained a congenial relationship. And because of that congenial relationship, eventually he was able to get Dhritarashtra, he was able to wake Dhritarashtra up from his slumber with those harsh words that we saw. Right? So this is, forgiveness without trusting. And of course, one important point here is that if the offenses escalate to a very criminal level, then disciplinary action is a must and essential and has to be taken. But then even that, the scriptures say, and this is like a superlative degree of consciousness, even that disciplinary action needs to be done without vengeance, as far as possible, is what the Vedas say. This is only highly advanced devotees can be in such a consciousness. But this was demonstrated by Vasudeva when in his relationship with Kamsa. So Kamsa kills all his first 6 children, and then the 7th child is transported to Vrindavan, who is Krishna, and the 8th child who is born is actually Maya Devi. And Maya Devi comes and says, to Kamsa, she says the person who is supposed to kill you is already born elsewhere and things like that. Now, what happens is Vasudeva then he begs forgiveness from, Kamsa begs forgiveness from Vasudeva and Devaki. And then Vasudeva forgives him. Sorry, I'm just mixing up the characters. But Vasudeva forgives Kamsa, but he doesn't trust Kamsa yet. It's not that because he forgave Kamsa, he'll say, oh Kamsa, Krishna is born in Vrindavan. I myself went and robbed him there. That's not what he does. He forgives Kamsa, but then he is still cautious. And then true to his caution, actually Kamsa then immediately takes a U-turn. When he understands that Krishna is somewhere, then he again arrests Vasudeva and Devaki and imprisons them. Anyway, so this is one. Any thoughts here? We have just 2 minutes. This is all I had actually. Any reflections on this? If I said anything wrong here, please, you have to forget. How come you?
I love this point on forgiveness and how we can have disciplinary action for individuals without vengeance. And actually it's done with love at the highest levels to hold people accountable and give them the opportunity. So thank you so much for bringing that up. That was really enlightening.
Thank you. It's a very high platform to be at. I'm myself learning, not yet there, but it's what Vidura is demonstrating to us. Vidura's great example. So, Any other thoughts on whatever we discussed before we begin the Aarti? Okay, so I think that's it. We still have about 20 seconds to go.
Jagannath Gopal Das ki!
Right.
Thank you so much for such an enlightening class. Thank you. Can we get one big Haribol?
Haribol!
Thank you so much. much. So now we're going to have Artsy, so if you could all just help clearing the space, we'll fold the chairs and stack the cushions. And then if I could just have three strong devotees who could help Rajalakshmi. Raj, please raise your hand. To bring Prashadam down, because the elevator is broken. If you feel like you fit into that category of very strong devotee, please see Rajalakshmi. Thank you so much. I don't know. That sounds like you. Please. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati
Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Adhay Charanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON founder Acharya, BBT founder Acharya, Savior of the whole world, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtodashata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Rajbhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki Purushottam Kshetra Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Devi ki Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatt Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadas Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Gan ki Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Guru Shishya Sampradaya ki ISKCON Vartaman Acharya Vrinda ki Nitai Gaura Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending our Bhagavat Shravan program today. Thank you so much for our kirtaniyas leading us so beautifully. Before we head to the back to take prasadam, we have a few announcements. So please bear with me while I read them to you. First of all, is anybody here for the 6-hour Kirtan Festival this weekend? Yesterday? No? All right. Heard it was great. Good news is we have them every month, so we all have another chance to go. So keep an eye out for the next one in the newsletter and in the WhatsApp group. But for this coming week, we have a lot of exciting things going on. So next weekend, we have a really exciting series of programs for Ram Navami. So starting with on Sunday, Jaini Taidas will give the Bhagavatam class on Sunday morning. That's 7:15 to 8 a.m. And then we will roll right into this program, our Bhagavat Shravana program, with a very special guest. We will have His Holiness Jagannath Swami coming and giving the class that day. So definitely not one to miss. And then after that, we will have our Ram Navami festival, which is going to start at time. That is 4 o'clock. And we have another very special guest. His Holiness Radhanath Swami will be present, also giving class. So very, very special to have these great souls actually in our midst. And being able to take their association so directly and in person. So really encourage everyone to be present for as much of the Sunday programming as we have next week. It will be really, really wonderful. And then final news would just be, if you're not already signed up for the temple WhatsApp group or for the email list, please let me know and I can help you find that on the website of where you input your email, because we have a lot of really great information. And then finally, this is a community-run program. So we have a poll near prasadam. We also have a QR code. If you're able to and feel inspired to donate, we would welcome any amount to help keep these programs running for you and for the entire community. That is it. I think that's it for us this week. Thank you so much, and please head to the back to honor prasadam. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Jenna.